Okay, so I've now decided, after thinking long and hard about this, I've now decided, because I have enough already on my plate, and even though I was so close to the end with the Audi, I've decided, fuck it, I'm just gonna restart. Oh, and the demo's loading up. And unfortunately, I have to wait for this to end in order for me to actually get something out of this. So yeah, I am going to restart the Showdown Championship from square one, because, well, as you can imagine right now, I am pretty pissed off. Because Brands Hatch in the returning visit just will not give me a fucking break. So I'm gonna start over. So new game, full championship, obviously, continue, and gonna use the name I used before, J Pickford. And well, as much as I didn't want to do this, I don't think the Audi is gonna work, because I just cannot control this thing at Brands Hatch. It just won't do it. So, you know what I'm gonna use instead? I'm gonna use one of the top tier cars in this. And well, I've decided, even though the Audi is four-wheel drive, it doesn't feel like four-wheel drive. So I'm going to use one of the front-wheel drive cars, and I'm instead going to use the Volvo. The Volvo S40. Because hopefully I will have an easier time of gripping this thing. Also because, well, I need a car that's more suitable for the bumpier tracks. But anyways, over to you, Tiff, for our introduction to the Showdown.
Welcome to the TOCA Showdown Championship. The Volvo team are a bit of a surprise package this season with the introduction of a completely unknown driver. This is Donington Park and the first of two touring car visits here this season. Today, the teams will be racing the longer Grand Prix circuit. Qualifying for the first race is due to start, so let's see who comes out on top.
So here we go. Let's now get through qualifying for our first race in the Showdown. Okay then, so I've set 2 qualifying laps here at the Donington GP circuit, and now we can head over to the rest of the qualifying results.
Well, there was very little in it, so we should be in for an excellent race.
And I did surprisingly well for my first qualifying session at Volvo, as of which I qualified 8th. And looks as though the Audis, whilst they do have the tremendous qualifying speed, it is fair to say they don't really have the same in terms of overall race speed. But either way, every point counts because I know it means one less point for menu. Anyways, here we go. So, we do have point targets once again. We need a minimum of 20 points in order to clear Donington. I should have shifted up into second gear so I wouldn't get the wheel spin. Unfortunately, that is not the case. However, it really doesn't matter because I know this is going to be... Oh, I accidentally spun Calvin. And there goes one of the Nissans, who I just made contact with. Oh, fuck my ass. Well, good to know the first couple of races in championship mode are easy ones. Because if they weren't, then I would be really dragging my heels. Then, well, in all honesty, this game would really be dragging my heels if these first couple of races weren't easy and I just spun Tarquini. But either way, I don't care. I might be down in 5th, but it won't take me too long to get to the front, as I've learned. And another thing I know is these first couple of races are going to be pretty easy. But anyways, I decided to switch over to Volvo just because I figured the overall race speed will be better. And I just spun out Menu in the process. I know he's going to be my championship rival here. And I just simply decided I was going to need to use a front-wheel drive car. Even though someone probably will attempt to use the Audi at some point to potentially get some race pace, but either way, I really don't care because I decided if I'm going to win the showdown, then I need a car that will not be the Audi. As much as I really hate to do this, but either way, it doesn't matter because, well, since I already have enough on my plate at this time, I figured my only option was to restart this and then try and see if within the next couple of days or so I can get to the halfway point of championship mode. Hopefully anyway. But yes, so basically taking the nuclear option here, because even though the Audi was good to an extent, I decided if I'm going to get around Brands Hatch, then I need to have a front-wheel drive car, not rear-wheel. And ultimately, I just could not tame Brands Hatch in the Audi no matter what I did. As much as I desperately tried to. But anyways. So yeah. So the Donington GP circuit, of course home to many great national racing divisions in the UK. It's also what I can consider to be my home track, because in terms of international venues, I would say the Donington circuit probably is the closest I can get to being my home venue, because, well, apparent as it might be, the Nottingham GP circuit is located between Nottingham and Leicester, and because I technically live not too far from Nottingham, it is fair to say that I do more or less consider Donington to be my home racetrack, because I know it's closest to where I live. But anyways, it's not likely to see me using the nuclear option, but I decided, because I don't think the Audi is going to help me here, I've simply decided I need to try something different, and something where I can at least be more likely to tame the car during qualifying, because I'm not having to shift or oscillate quite as much weight on the car when I'm setting the qualifying laps. I'm also pretty sure this is going to be a dominant performance, as of which the start of the championship is relatively easy. to begin with, and then once you get into the later stages, it slowly but surely gets harder and harder. But that's why my main objective is to make sure I win at least 5 out of the first 6 races, maybe even clear the first 6 races if that's what it takes. And at this point so far, as I would have expected, I'm just dominating here at Donington. Also, another thing I should mention is I was actually here at Donington for a music festival. It was called the Download Festival when I was over here at Donington. It's been the music venue for that festival for a number of years now, and let me just say, it was a truly electrifying experience, to say the least. And running good so far, as I'm now approaching lapped traffic. And trying to clear one of the Nissans, he does not give way. Ultimately, he has to spin himself out for trying to be on the defensive. Although personally, I think there's no reason for him to be on the defensive. But either way, doing good so far. Plus, one other advantage I get with driving a front-wheel drive car is I'm able to get a smoother entry into the corner, because a lot of the grip is in the front tyres and there isn't quite as much weight I have to think about. And it now looks as though I'm coming to overlap my teammate, Calvin Burt. He was just up ahead of me, and hopefully if it is possible, he can manage to get some points on the board eventually. Calvin is not giving me an easy time at the moment, and he spins himself out as a result. But hopefully he will manage to improve as the season goes on. Even though many of you would have probably suggested I use the Honda, I decided, well, because my family are proud Volvo owners, I just figured, why don't I just keep up with the family tradition and choose the Volvo. Even though I can assure you this is not the boxy shaped Volvo you might be thinking of. But anyway. Going good so far here at Donington, as we are now already a third of the race distance, and Tim Harvey is now closing in on one of the Nissans, it looks like. I think that's David Leslie in the first of the 2 Nissans, as of which I've already overlapped one of the Nissans at this stage of the race. And oh, fuck my ass. Well, nice to know the first couple of races in this game are easy ones. Well, it's nice to know the first couple of races in this game are easy ones. I'm probably gonna have to delete all of the videos I published with when I was driving the Audi, because, well, I've decided, is there really a point in me keeping them if I've now decided to change cars at the last minute? Probably not. But either way, I was doing well with the Audi to an extent, but when it came down to crunch time, I simply decided I don't think the Audi is going to do the job for me at Brands Hatch, because of how heavy it is. And I'm going to assume that was the reason why I kept spinning out for whatever reason. As in, the chaos just did not want to stop every time I was wanting it to stop. And I can assure you when I say I was wanting this to happen numerous times, but unfortunately it didn't. And so here I am now. I've decided to change cars, and hopefully, since I know this car will be lighter than the Audi, maybe I can manage to get some results on the board. And apparently there might be the spinning continues. But either way, hopefully it should not take me too long to get back into the running order, as I now have one of the Hondas ahead of me. And he was not being very helpful. Of course, he was blocking me quite heavily. But anyways, yeah. So, when I was at this music festival that was being held at Donington, the headline acts they ultimately had at that venue were notably Kiss on the Friday, then Iron Maiden on the Saturday, and Biffy Clyro on the Sunday. I was in it for 2 of those live performances, but wasn't really up for it after Biffy Clyro, because, well, let me tell you, I was exhausted. By the time the concert itself was over. Also, I was basically stopping in a tent with my dad, and even though they were supposed to put us in the quiet camp, ultimately that was basically packed out, and ultimately we were moved over to the eco camp, which is basically right where those cargo containers are, surrounding the loudness of the music. But either way, on Sunday night I just literally could not sleep. Because of how fucking loud the music was, and because of how it basically kept going until 3 AM. So, to be completely honest, apart from that, and also apart from me basically getting sunburnt on my face, arms and legs, because, well, this was in the middle of June when I was at this festival. Apart from all those things, I can happily say, at the end of the day, the festival overall, it was mostly good. And I did also manage to get a couple of things whilst I was there also. So, you know, pretty good experience altogether. Also, did I just overlap menu? Well, I must have done, because I think Plato is somewhere up the order, unless he is running in third. Really wouldn't surprise me if he is. But anyways. So, things are going well in the Volvo at the moment. And I just totally cut the corner because I decided if I did want to dive back and take the corner, I would have just spun out. So, to be completely honest, there was no point in me even trying it. Also, FYI, Plato is actually ahead of menu, which quite literally tells me that in the first race of the season, Jason Plato is actually running ahead of the Dominator Alan Menu, because this is not something I would have thought was going to last this long, but somehow it has. But anyway, so everything is going as planned, and it looks as though at this stage, like, I am basically going to overlap the entire field. Although, in saying that, of course, I've already done that once. But either way, that's just how easy these first couple of races will be for me and this Volvo. As I continue to dominate. And next time around, I should be completing lap 12 here at Donington. As I now head through the chicane once again. And it looks as though at this stage, like, nothing is going to stop me and my tricoloured Volvo. Because, well, my Volvo is technically 3 colours: white, blue and yellow. Also, I do believe this would be the car that I think the following year would take Ricard Rydell to winning the BTCC the following year. Even though I think the car he used to win that year's BTCC was the Nissan Primera. But yeah. Plenty of history surrounding Donington. It's ultimately a circuit that's been open to us in the UK since 1938, even though the original layout was nowhere near what it looks like now, obviously. And I've now managed to clear the Ford Mondeo, who looks to be fighting for position with the Nissan and my teammate Calvin Burt. I think I could also see John Cleland there in the Vauxhall. And it looks as though everything is running smoothly. As I now begin lap 14 here at Donington. So this course has been the host of many racing divisions over the years. Of course, the most notable of those being Formula One, where nearly 30 years ago, in 1993, this course had held the European Grand Prix, and where, apparent as it might be, that was the only time F1 officially ran a race at Donington. And it is fair to say that by that point, of course, Max Mosley had also recently been elected the succeeding president of the FIA to Jean-Marie Balestre. And it is fair to say that overall during his tenure, there was a lot of criticism for some of the things he did, but it is fair to say his tenure as the president of the FIA until he was succeeded by Jean Todt in 2009. Max Mosley's tenure as the president of the FIA was, well, let's just call it an iconic one to say the least. I should also mention the man himself has recently died. As some of you already know. But yes, so it was here in 1993 when Senna had arguably put together what had to be one of the most dominating performances in F1 history. The race itself was wacky to say the least, with how much action there was. But ultimately, whilst Williams looked to be the superior car, ultimately it was Ayrton Senna who on that day had proven to be the superior driver. Immediately chopping his way through the field like a hot knife through butter on the first lap, and he moved up from 5th on the starting grid all the way up to 1st by the time they got to the hairpin at the end of the first lap. Senna was able to put together a dominating performance in damp conditions. And it is also fair to say that the Williams team at the time, who were technically promoting Sonic the Hedgehog on that day, because many people were comparing the Williams duo to Sonic the Hedgehog in terms of how unstoppable that team was at the time. And apparent as it might be, I think there was also a scene where McLaren had actually shown a squished Sonic the Hedgehog, showing essentially that Senna was able to beat the duo which at the time looked to be invincible. And in most cases they were. But either way, even though his car was underpowered compared to the Williams duo on that day, it was clearly driver skill which decided the outcome on that day, when Senna had managed to successfully beat out both the Williams on that day in what was effectively a race of attrition. Because out of the 26 drivers who started that race, there were only 10 finishers. Of course, a lot of races back then were decided on attrition, but ultimately it had proven to be a race of attrition, because whilst there were 11 classified finishers, there were officially 10 cars that saw the checkered flag at the end of the day. And so we now begin the final lap here at Donington. And as I would have expected, I'm going to easily win the first race of the showdown with almost no trouble whatsoever, aside from being held up by a few back markers, but that's about it. And now it looks as though I would say the opening of this championship is going to go fine, the way I see it. So under the Dunlop tyre bridge now for the final time, and heading through the chicane as I overlap my teammates now for a second time, and Tim Harvey... no wait, hold on. I've overlapped those guys the third time. Yeah, that's right, yeah. I've overlapped them 3 times. But anyways. So, heading through the final hairpin turn. Looks as though I could overlap one of the runners again, but isn't going to happen. But it doesn't matter, because I comfortably win race 1.
Well, we may have a budding star in our hands as the new Volvo driver scores his first touring car win. Here's the final positions.
Alrighty then. So Jason Plato takes second in the end of that race. I won this race comfortably by nearly 2 laps. Menu was third ahead of Beeler, and then we had the 2 Hondas, followed by Jamie Bintcliffe and David Leslie completing the top 8. And then in the bottom half we have Tim Harvey, who finished in 9th ahead of Kelvin Burt. Anthony Reid was the first of the non-point scorers, and then we had Derek Warwick ahead of Will Hoy, Patrick Watts, John Cleland, and Paul Radisich, completing the finishing order. So, there we go. And let's now get on with qualifying for race number 2, and see how this goes. Domination to start the showdown in the Volvo.